Hey there, Mystic Crafters. This month's Mystic Craft is a spirit doll, and you can see some of my examples right here. So I'm just going to do this video to show you how I make mine. And in the classroom, you'll be able to find a template that you can use to make yours, and also a list of supplies and some tips for making magic. So in general, I use these just kind of as an altar intention setting, and just really as something that you can set around your altar or in your space. I think of them kind of as reminders, as goddess energies, and I do create them with a specific kind of energy in mind, and that's why I want to take you through the process of creating yours, and which really starts with the first step of setting an intention for what type of spirit doll you're looking for. I think this was the first one that I made, and I really didn't have anything in mind other than just more of a goddess energy. And I love how this one looks. I wanted the yellow for just that bright color, the yellow and orange, connecting to the sacral chakra and also the solar plexus chakra, but just that really bright, kind of fun energy, joyful energy. So that's what I think of when I am connecting with this particular doll. And then I made a couple of these for the elements. So this one was more ocean energy, not just water, but I was really thinking more ocean when I made this one. This one I was thinking of earth energy, and this one on the end, fire. And if you look closely at this one, you can see there is like a dragon here. And I was thinking of the dragon kind of like a kundalini energy. So I say all that to say, and then this one was a guardian angel. I don't know if you can read that, but it says guardian angel. So this one I designed with the wings for guardian angel energy. And this one you can see also has that wing pattern for the arms. So I am just saying that to say, you know, as you make it, you may not have an intention first, but you can see what forms. But if you can think about what type of spirit doll you might need, you know, just in terms of what do you want to keep in your space as a reminder of a certain type of energy. And then as you put together the doll, you can think about the colors and the textures. You can see the hair is a little different. They have different textures and things through the body. And then I use something here, kind of like their yoni energy. And then you can see I always have something to represent breast or nipples. But you can create your doll any way that you like. But to me, everything is symbolic. You know, it's going to have some sort of symbolic representation to you. So these are just some examples. I'm just going to set these aside and show you how to make these. And if you have already made your palmistry hand, or you made some sort of hand like we did before, maybe you have some of this air dry clay still hanging around, or you know, or if you haven't made it, you can use the same pack of air dry clay to make both of these. But we're going to start with some air dry clay. We're also going to start with a template. I made one in this size for myself. In the classroom, you'll see this template. You can shrink it, or you can make it larger. You can, you know, print it out. So you can make these whatever size you're comfortable with. This is the size that I'm going to be using. I'm going to take my air dry clay, and it should be soft. And when you get it, just kind of knead it a little bit just to make sure it's soft. And I am going to be using my bottle, my trusty dusty bottle, as a rolling pin. If you actually have a rolling pin, that's even better. Something that you can roll out. What I have down here is parchment paper, which I like to use because things don't stick to it. And so even if you're working with glue and stuff like that, it doesn't stick and everything gets stuck. So I like to work against parchment for the most part. So you want a piece that's roughly that size, and I'm just going to roll it out. And for this, you know, it's up to you what, again, what size you want it, and also what thickness you want it to be too. I haven't really measured the ones that I have. But I would say this is probably one of the thicker ones, and this is probably one of the thinner ones. So it just depends. They don't weigh very much, but you know, you might have a certain thickness. I think these are great just for holding in your hands as well. So it just maybe depends on what is your preference. So we have something right now that's about this thick, and that is a good thickness. Once you get it about this size, and this is how I do it. I don't know if there's an easier way to do. I've just cut this out on just like a little light cardstock. I've just printed it out rather on a little light cardstock. So it's not thick or anything, but what I do is I just press it in. I'm just pressing the paper into the clay. And you want to press it in well enough so that you get a kind of an outline. So I hope you can see that particular outline. Then you're going to use your cutting tool, and you're just going to really cut. I always say cutting away until you cut out this outline. And be careful. Anytime you're using something sharp, just be careful. And again, going around curves is a little bit challenging, so I think about it in terms of cutting out areas instead of trying to cut the entire piece out at once. And you don't have to be perfect with this, because you can always go back in and, you know, with the knife, or even once it dries, we're going to go back in with a sanding tool to sand down the edges. So just do your best. And just take your time with this too. Again, when you're using this knife, you just want to be really careful. Try to keep your fingers out from in front of the blade. And I'm just saving all of these little extra edges, because you could take those and turn them into another piece, or mix them in with some more clay, and you know, take all that, especially if it's still wet, still kind of damp, and turn it into another spirit doll. So once you have like a semblance of it, you can always put this back over top and then just kind of try to outline a little bit better. See where everything is. And just to show you from the side, hold on, let me get this little area real quick. And some of these corners or edges will be easier to get, I think, with a little tool like this. And this is just flat on the edge, and it just has a kind of dull point. So you can see how thick it is. And that's about how I like mine, but you can always do yours with less thickness. Just remember, in terms of drying time, it may take it a little bit longer to dry. So what I'm saying about these kind of edges and things is that if you just have this little tool, I'm just going to stick it in here and kind of roll it just to give more of a curve or definition where the hands are supposed to be, for example. And again, just kind of doing a little roll just so you can get more definition in there. Same thing here, like around the breasts and the arms, armpits. And you can just use your hand and just kind of tap and create whatever shape that you want. I always like this bottom part to be rounded. Okay, and once you've got kind of some semblance of a shape, then we want to give the shape some form. So I'm going to show you two that I just recently did. And these have already hardened. These have already air dried. You can see when they air dry, they contract a little bit. There's a little bit of a curve. You can see it maybe better here. There's a little bit of a curve, which is just fine with me. But you see I have a face for them. And you see I have added some different things, mostly some texture. Hope you can see kind of the texture on this one. I always add something here, like right at this area. And then I do something with their hair, and then sometimes I'll do something different with their arms. This one I added, let's see if we can. This one, you can see I added a crown, and then for her arms, I also added wings. So that's what I mean by thinking about your intention for them. What do you want them to come out looking like? You might want to start thinking about the colors at this point and what different elements you want to create. Now, I have been using these little beads for their heads. And the beads have kind of a flat surface and then a raised surface. And I think I just found these at a craft store, like a whole bunch of them. So they come in all different colors. And I just use these for the head. I have been using these charms that are wings, and these make a pretty strong impression. So I can just press these into the clay, and then I have wings. Just so you can see the example here. So you can see how well they come out when you highlight them with something. And I've been using this gold leaf. I just put it on my finger and then just rub it in. It's just like, it just picks up the top surface. So it brings out any texture that you have really, really well. So let me just focus again. So whatever it is that whatever design you put in here, when you paint it, you're going to be able to see that design come up. You might use some cowrie shells or something like that. Like I said, I like to put the cowrie shells here. But just, be creative and think about what, how do you want to design your spirit doll? What would symbolically convey whatever your intention is for that particular doll? So let's put mine back in here. And just so you can see where the arms should be, where the outline for the head would be, and everything else. I think I'm going to do another cowrie shell one, but I'm going to do the cowrie shell like this. So I'm just pressing that in. And you want to press it in, deeply enough. What I also do usually is glue these down a bit too. So once I press in, I don't have my glue here, I just use a regular Elmer's glue. Once I press in a little bit, I'll lift it out, and then I'll put in a little dab of glue in there. This has been pressed in pretty well, so it will probably stay, but I do like the glue kind of just in case. Okay, and then I want to put in the head. I think I'm going to use this particular one. So you can look and see, well, where would the head go? Because I like to put in where the head is first. Head should be about there. And we want to press in. And again, I usually press in a little bit. The head still wants to pop out, so you want it raised. So I just press it in a little bit, and then I'll put a little bit of glue in there. But once you have the head in, you can see where the arms should go. And that's all I do. I just take where the arms should go, and I just do a quick kind of movement to where the neck would be. And then I do another area around just like that. So I don't use the knife or anything here. I just use something so that I can just get an outline. And then if you want to do wings, for example, the way I do wings is I just press them in. I'll just press them and then pull them back out. Now, for the head and the hair, you will notice that I have different hair on these. Let me pull up my other ones. So you'll see, for example, like her hair looks really big, like these lines that go out. Hers has like a zigzaggy line. Hers has, it's going kind of for an afro look with these circles. So let me show you how I make all those. I'm taking this same exact tool. For this look, I'm just using the bottom of this tool and just pressing in, just pressing around. For this one, I'm taking the tip and I'm just making zigzag lines. And for this one, the way I do this is I take this tool on the side and I just press it in this way. And then, like I said, once you make that indentation, it will stay. I'm honestly not sure exactly what I want to do for the hair or for the rest of the body. And you can apply those same things just to the rest of the body in terms of the shapes. You can add any type of, indentation or find something that has some texture to it, and you can apply that texture and it will stay once it hardens, and then you'll be able to see it, once you paint it and use, like I said, this kind of gold leaf or something on the top. You don't have to necessarily use that gold leaf, but anything that you do that will bring out that texture, you'll still be able to see the texture once this dries. The only other thing that I like to do, I do like to have some nipples. So I just make those here. And then, like I said, I'll figure out what I want to do for the rest of the body and the hair a little bit later. But I do want to still make sure I do it pretty quickly because it has to be moist, in order for it to, it has to have certain level of dampness. If it's already starts drying, it's not going to take that texture. So I'm just going to put this aside and work on that probably in a few more minutes. Now, once you have something that dries, and I think I say usually about 2 days for drying, but it depends again on the thickness of what you have, but I would leave at least 2 days of drying, air drying. You can set it out in the sun or something like that and just let it dry. And then once it's dried, now you can go back and kind of shape it a little bit more. As you see, these edges are really rough. And so you're just going to use your sander, just a fine sander. Just like look at the edge here, that's really rough. And you just want to shape it, whatever way that you want. Make it nice and smooth. I like it smooth, but if you like it a little bit rough, that's fine. I do suggest also doing this like with some type of little mask on your face, just so you don't inhale all of these little pieces. And don't do it when you have another one right here. And then I usually have a little brush, which I don't have up here, to just take some paper towel, but you just want to kind of brush off any of the little pieces that have come off from just sanding. Just make sure it's all smooth. Once you've done that as much as you want to do it, then you would be doing your gesso, and then you would paint. Remember, with your gesso and paint, you have to be careful so that if you want to maintain the color of this little stone here, that you got to paint and gesso and paint around it. You can kind of get it off pretty easily, but it's just easier to just keep that in mind so that you're not painting all over the top of this. Now, in this case, I will gesso and paint directly on this little wooden, it's basically like a little wood kind of bowl here, because I want that completely covered with paint. So any areas you don't want covered with paint, just be careful of that. And then once you've painted them, just put them on this. Once you have them painted, you gesso them first, then paint. Then I usually just do some sort of sealer over the top. You can do something that is glossy, that picks up all of the, if you use something metallic, like it'll pick up all the gold color, or you can keep it sort of like a semi-matte, which I prefer. And then you'll have your spirit doll. And I, like you can see, I do the whole side. This is what the back looks like. And I just, I smooth everything down so it's smooth on the front, the sides, you know, and the back. But just remember, wherever you want that texture, make sure that you keep that texture in, and you'll be able to see that and also feel it. I think it's a really great thing that you make your spirit doll tactile too, so you can actually feel that texture on it. So this is our Mystic Crafts project, the spirit doll, and you will be able to find the template that I showed already, as well as supplies, a list of supplies, and some tips for making magic with your spirit doll in the classroom.